All right, joining me now here on the Matthew Filipowicz Show is Jenna Pope. Jenna is an activist and an award-winning freelance photographer. You can find all of her work at jennapope.com. You can also follow her on Twitter at BatmanWI. Jenna, thank you so much for being on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
All right, so Jenna, last week you were in your home state of Wisconsin. You were in Madison specifically, where you were, in fact, arrested for singing. It was part of the ongoing Solidarity sing-along protests. Before we get to your arrest itself, describe, because the Solidarity sing-alongs have been going on for quite some time, give a little background of what exactly the Solidarity sing-alongs are.
Yeah, the first Solidarity sing-along, it happened in March 2011. That was during the initial uprising in Wisconsin. If people remember, when we had about 200,000 people converged on our capital and we occupied it for 3 weeks. So this sing-along has been going on since then because Scott Walker is still in office. And so it's pretty much, it goes on every weekday from noon to 1 p.m. And whoever can make it out, a lot of people come on their lunch hour. A lot of people that come are retired, and they all come and they sing, and there's a bunch of different political songs. A lot of the lyrics have been changed to address issues specifically in Wisconsin. So they come out and they express their opposition to the Walker administration through song.
And over time, this really has been going on since the occupation of the Madison Capitol. And let's talk a little bit about how... because under the Wisconsin Constitution, I remember because I actually was living in Chicago at the time, and I came up a couple times to see it and to cover it as well. The way Scott Walker's actually changed the rules of what can actually go on and how people are actually allowed to be in their own capital has actually evolved over time. And the way he's handled these singers has actually escalated in the previous months. So let's talk a little about that.
Yeah, so from March 2011 until December 2011, the singers were able to do whatever they wanted with no issues. But in December of 2011, they decided to all of a sudden change the capital access policy. None of the rule changes went through any of our legislators, any of our elected legislators. They just decided to change it. And they had a 3-day education session specifically for the Solidarity sing-along because they knew it was going to affect them, us. I when I used to live there, I would attend the Solidarity sing-along pretty often. And basically the main rule change was that anybody gathering in groups of 4 or more who were there to promote any specific cause or any certain cause, they were required to get a permit. Which 4 people isn't a lot, or,
yeah.
Seems ridiculous that for such a small group you need to get a permit. So they had these education sessions. They were complete BS. We had a lot of questions for them. They couldn't answer, any of them. One of ours was, okay, if we come in and we have 4 or more people and we're singing, are we going to be arrested? And they literally were like, we don't know. We can't answer that. So they couldn't even tell us that. They changed the capital access policy, and they didn't do anything. Even though, we had, a bunch of people came. We had, the first day that the capital access policy was put into effect, about 1,000 people came out and sang in the Capitol, and they didn't do anything. Nothing happened. Nothing happened for months. There were time periods where they would target other things, such as people holding signs during the sing-along. There was a point where they arrested people who were holding signs for a while, but they never actually targeted the sing-along in general, just for having too many people. And so what happened was there was still that question that every day you went in, is this the day where they're going to decide to actually enforce it? So one person who used to participate in the sing-along quite often, who, because of his job and for other various reasons, he didn't feel safe going to the sing-along because of that capital access policy change. He filed a lawsuit on behalf of everybody at the sing-along, basically. And basically trying to. It's a federal lawsuit. It's in federal court, and so that isn't done until like the court case or whatever will wrap up in January. But the federal judge that's working on it, he actually issued a temporary injunction, like in July, saying that it's unconstitutional to require groups of smaller than 20 to have a permit. Like it's such a small group of people. The only thing is he didn't say that it is constitutional to require groups of more than 20 to get a permit. He just said that below 20 is definitely unconstitutional. So they basically twisted that and said, oh, the judge ruled that any groups over 20 must get a permit. So they basically, like I said, they twisted his words. That's not what he said. And they gave kind of like a week period of leeway, and then they began arresting people at the sing-along. So
yeah,
that's kind of the background.
Yeah, and so since that judge, that judges said that, and it's been twisted, many people have actually been arrested in the hundreds, correct?
Yeah, it's been there've been over 200 citations given out, and it's been over 100 arrests because a lot of these people, the cops will arrest them day after day. But there's been over 100 individuals that have been arrested and over 200 citations given out.
Unbelievable. And so you were back in Madison last week, and you went to some of these some of the sing-alongs, and you actually were one of the people who were arrested. It's weird. So describe the actual process, because it doesn't sound like everybody gets arrested necessarily. It kind of changes from day to day, which is also kind of the thing that's very, I imagine, pretty frustrating. As some days they allow it, some days they don't, some days they arrest, some days they don't. Who they arrest is often up in the air. The whole thing is pretty much a madhouse, right?
Yeah. Well, every day that we are inside the Capitol, they have arrested people since they began arresting. But if there's like another permit taken out by another group for the same time, the sing-along moves outside. They do honor that permit, and also every Friday they are outside no matter what. We've got like a little band that comes in, they play guitar and they have trombones and stuff. So every Friday they always go outside, so that we can have a chance to. It's fun. The one outside is always very festive. There's live music and stuff. Inside we can't have instruments. And as far as who they're arresting, yeah, it's very, it's hard to tell, like, if they have a strategy or if they don't know what they're doing. Like, it's kind of confusing. Occasionally they'll target people who are at the Capitol a lot, that's what happened to me. They knew that they were going to be arresting me. You can see them looking for me, and then once they find me, they make a beeline right towards me and arrest me. But then they're also arresting people who occasionally come to the sing-along and they probably don't really know who they are all that much. And then there's people who are coming for the first time, tourists, or people who decided to come by because they've been cracking down, faces that they don't recognize. And they'll also go for those people. And that's probably, they're trying to scare off any newcomers. So it's pretty much all over the place. As to who they arrest.